I'm so glad that the choir will also be singing, as Reverend Liza was discussing earlier, the song, the principle that the principles of religious science, of the science of mind. And that in and of itself is a big treat. And I always look forward to that because it always brings me to tears. And what I'm going to do is talk about the 10 basic core principles of the science of mind, which may sound a little different than what you hear in the song, but it's just framed in a little bit of a different way so that you can maybe think about some questions that you have. So when we have the forum after the service, if you have any questions, please feel free to bring them up then, or talk to me afterwards, because some of these things are a little bit deep and perhaps things that you may not have heard before or have some questions about. So I want to begin by also saying that someone helped me with this talk today, and it's a man that I knew a long, long time ago. His name is Swami Byandananda. Oh. And he's a wonderful man, and he has some very fun quotes that he uses to help us understand metaphysical principles. So one of the things that he says is, if you're looking for the key to the universe, I've got some good news and some bad news. And the bad news is that there is no key to the universe. The good news is it was never locked. So I think that you can understand that part of what we're talking about today is that this is a teaching that's open to everyone, that really doesn't preclude that you have to give up any belief or take on a new belief. It's a teaching that really serves all people in the way that they're able to accept it and put it into practice in their lives. And we do call it metaphysical. The first principle that I want to share with you is that there is one cosmic reality. And some of us would say this simply is God is all there is. That God is source. God is the source of all things. We use the term or the name God because that's pretty traditional and that's what most people know and understand. But we can certainly call it divine intelligence or energy, spiritual energy. All of those things mean the same thing. And if you feel that it's difficult for you to use the word God, then don't use it. Use one of those other descriptors that help you understand that there's a universal presence, this divine energy that is everywhere present. And the key to this is that is our source, that there is no other source that's outside of us. For instance, your job is not your source.
Thank you.
Good. The inheritance that your parents may leave you, which probably now isn't as great as it was 3 or 4 years ago, is not your source. There are these ideas that we come to because of our humanness, that we believe that certain things become objectified, and we identify them as our source. This source is energy. It's an ever-flowing energy, and I'll get more into that as we go forward. But we talk about this feeling that bad things happen to us. And that immediately sets us up in terms of thinking that there's something other than this source or other than this energy. And there isn't. All that is it's the human ego creating something that feels like it's outside of us because we have this fight or flight response. We create the sense of fear when something somehow challenges who we are, challenges our identity, challenges our world. But what we have to understand is that there's no power outside of us. There's no power in the sky, and as a result of that, there is nothing to oppose this power. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to number 2. God is threefold, or we call it the triune nature. And this, for many people who come from traditional churches, especially Christian churches, this will kind of move into that area of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And that's a perfectly normal and natural interpretation. But the idea of the triune nature of this energy, of this universal presence, is so much older than any Christian belief or Judaic belief that takes us, it goes so far into the past in terms of ancient ideas, because when you think of the triune nature of God, think about soil, a seed, and the plant. That is the triune nature of God, of the universal energy. So when we think about that in terms of metaphysics, the thought is the seed. The mind of God, this universal energy, this creative power, is the soil. And the effect, the experience we have, that's the plant. That's what comes about. So when you think about that, you can look almost anywhere in the universe and see that things come in threes. Two parents, a child. It's all a triune nature of universal expression and creation. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. The third idea, spirit, or this energy, is a causative power. Now, every time you have a word to say or a thought to think, something happens. It moves this power. It moves this energy. It's like planting the seed in the soil, and as a result of that plant, as a result of that intention, something happens. So what does that mean for us? That perhaps we need to watch what we think and watch what we say and really look at our beliefs, because everything that we think, everything that we say, depending on the emotional energy, on the depth of the belief we have in something, everything comes about in the outside world as our experience. So that's a very, very powerful idea. We cannot stop creating. We can't stop it. Even right now, even if you tried to stop thinking, you couldn't stop it, because there's something in your mind that still wants to keep going and create. We can't stop creating, and every thought has an effect. That has far-reaching ramifications. So number 4, the infinite nature of God, all conceivable good, is eternally available. Sometimes we think that, and we go back into number 1, that there's lack. It comes out of our human perception of lack. In the world of the universe, in the concept of energy, what we realize is there is no end to it. It is infinite. It is eternal. It's always available to us. Well, what limits it? It's limited because of our human belief and our human experience, our human past. Now, through some cosmic process that we don't quite understand completely, that we call prayer, this energy is activated. This energy comes into being by the level of our faith and the level of our acceptance. And so the expression of this belief or faith and acceptance is prayer. It's so powerful. It's so amazing. And when we invest that energy in that sense of prayer, in the openness to the goodness of this power and presence, we see that power and presence expressing itself as healing. And so when someone is experiencing something that does not look like the perfection that we would like to see, the goodness that we would like to see, we take that into prayer. And we literally activate that cosmic intelligence and set it in motion towards that healing, so that that healing can take place. What does this mean for us? That our words and our faith have power. And that it's so important for us to know that the amount of time we spend in spiritual practice is significant. Because remember what I said, thoughts and words all have power. They all have an effect. So how much of your time are you spending thinking about things that will produce healing versus giving energy to the things that present us with a sense of lack? I heard, I'm sorry to say, at least 4 conversations this morning as I was coming in about people who were talking about the budget cuts. amount of money that they were going to lose. Well, number one, it hasn't happened yet. So why are we giving so much energy and power to something that hasn't even happened? And that's not your source. So we have to remember, what are we talking about? What are we giving energy to? What are we feeding with our energy? What are we feeding with our emotions? Because that's what's important. Prayer always works, but it works according to what we believe in. What do we have faith in? Okay, number 5. The universe is a universe of wholeness, of allness, of oneness. It is transcendent, and it is, in its essence, perfect. Now, we don't always see that perfection, because in the human nature of our intelligence, we created something really interesting. It's called opposites, called duality. So that when we see something good, our mind says, well then, there must be something bad. And so we judge. We create a sense of judgment. And the ego pits one against the other. And so then our humanness starts to look for the good things and run away or fear the bad things. And so we create this whole scenario of opposites that causes us to be concerned and to be upset and to be agitated, to be frustrated and to get angry. And I have come up with the thing that works for me. Maybe it'll work for you. When I look at a situation, when I look at what's going on in the world, and it's something that my human mind says, that's not what you want, that's not a good thing, it's very upsetting, it could be very frustrating, I look at it and I say, it is what it is. It is what it is. And I bring myself back to a neutral place. We had a wonderful practitioner workshop yesterday, and in that workshop we were talking to one another about how we bring ourselves back to source, back to center. And one of the things that I was sharing with all the people that I talk to is that every time I get taken out of source, out of that place of feeling at one with this universal presence, I think of the faces of my 2 poodles. I look at the silliness and the fuzziness and the sense of unconditional love that they have for me. And somehow that immediately brings me back to a place where I look at that situation and recognize and know it's just temporary. It's not the truth. It's just something that's happening, and I'm judging it by my humanness. And if I look at it through my poodle's eyes, it looks a whole lot different. So I want to share something with you from Swami Vyandananda. He says, it is true, as we go through life thinking heavy thoughts, thought particles tend to get caught between the ears and cause a condition called truth decay. Be sure to use mental floss twice a day, and when you're tempted to practice tantrum yoga, remember what we teach. Don't get even, get odd. So number 6, there is a universe of infinite abundance, spiritual, mental, and physical. And when we know that, the bounty of spirit can never be depleted. There's never an end to it. The concept of lack, again, comes from our human perception. It's a result of our own choices, of our own beliefs. So what can we accept? That's the idea. There's a great metaphor that's used in the Science of Mind textbook that Dr. Holmes says, when you are collecting water for something, do you go to the ocean with a small cup, or do you go with an enormous tub? Or maybe you can take a hose and drain it. What are you going to that idea with? What are you taking with you to take the abundance and the plenty so that you can enjoy your life? Are you just limiting yourself because you feel that you don't deserve it? Because someone has told you that you're only entitled to this much? What is that belief that's in your own mind about the amount that you can accept in your life? And if that abundance is plenty, if it's infinite, if it's eternal, then why can't we go to that infinite source knowing that we can accept as much as we possibly can? What is keeping our belief system from being expanded and accepting more? Number 7, this is a reciprocal universe. So for every visible form, there is an invisible thought, just like I was talking about in the beginning. When we think a thought, there eventually becomes an effect. So there's a counterpart to that invisible idea. Everything in nature tends to equalize itself. And so as we give, we receive. And so we have to keep that circulation going. If we dam up the dam and the lake never gets to flow down the river, then what happens is the lake becomes stagnant. How many times has that happened to us? Where our own lives become stagnant because we're afraid to give. We're afraid to open the dam. We're afraid to let some of our treasure be gone or escape from our world because there won't be enough. If we trust in that reciprocal activity of the divine mind, what we know is that when we open that gate, that dam, the water flows and more good flows into the lake. We give the lake an opportunity to be refilled. So what happens is when we create a vacuum in the universe anywhere, we know this in science, when a vacuum is created, unless it's kept airtight and sealed, something rushes in to fill it up. And that's what happens with us. When we create the vacuum, something rushes in to fill it up. So the universe, number 8, exists in the eternal now. There's no space and time in the universe. Now this is a hard thing for the human mind to operate under, because we live by space and time. We have computers with calendars, and we have day runners, and we have clocks and watches and calculators and all those kinds of things that tell us when to be where, how long, and how much. I mean, we live in a world of mathematics. So it's very difficult to understand that the universe doesn't have any mathematics, so to speak. There's no space and time in the universe. Everything is happening in the now moment. It's all happening in the eternal now. And in this universal harmony, justice without judgment is always automatic. There is no judging. There is no place for divine anger. There's no place for unforgiveness. There's no place for punishment. Because if we are living in the eternal now, there is no past. There is everything that we bring to a situation that brings us a sense of anger or frustration or irritation. All of that is a memory from the past. It's really not happening now. But how many times do we bring it up again and again? It's like I get irritated about certain things, and I stop to question, why am I being irritated about that right now? Because it happened years ago, maybe, or maybe even last week. But, why should I be upset about something that is in my memory, that continues to reenact itself as if it was real right here? There is no time and space in the universe, and there is no judgment, there is no punishment. So and what we have to know is that love is the great equalizer. Love is what brings us back into the now moment. Love brings us back into here and now. So the Swami says, if we want world peace, we must let go of our attachments and truly live like nomads. That's where I nomad at you, and you nomad at me. That way there'll surely be no madness on the planet. Peace begins with each of us. A little piece here, a little piece there. Pretty soon all the pieces will fit together and make one piece everywhere. Great wisdom in those words. Number 9, immortality is an infinite principle. It's not a bargain that we make with the God or the source or something out there. Immortality is reality. There is no bargaining with my life. You may not go on, and so, oh God, please let me be here just a little longer to experience such and such. It's not about that at all. There's an infinite expansion of consciousness that goes beyond the human body, that goes beyond what we experience in our humanness. And it was here before this human body came onto this planet. It's an individualized consciousness of expansion that continues forever and ever into eternity. Now, this is a belief system that some choose to think about differently. Some believe in the concept of reincarnation. All I can say is that for you, for me, we each have to come to this idea of immortality on our own. How does that feel for us? What I know about that consciousness is that it never ends. And for me, it's been proven to me because I have this amazing ability to connect with people in my life that have gone before me. And many of you do too, maybe all of you do, where you have that connection with someone who passed away many, many years ago, but their consciousness somehow was still with you, that there's still some remembrance that you have, there's some connection. And we have this realization that this one mind that we know is the mind of God has within it everything that has always ever been created or ever will be created. And in that one mind, nothing can ever disappear. It's all there. And so if that's true, then this body may be temporary, but the consciousness that inhabits it is eternal and infinite. So that's something you have to kind of wrap your mind around and process for a little while until you feel comfortable with whatever that is for you. And as I said before, you can take as much of this teaching as works for you, and whatever makes sense, use it, and whatever doesn't make sense, throw it out. Try it, practice it, use what works for you. Number 10, which takes me to the part that I love best about this teaching. The mystic concept of what we call the cosmic Christ. And I use the word Christ not in the name Jesus, because the concept of the Christ came long before the presence of the master teacher that we call Jesus. The presence of the Christ is called the Christos. It's ancient, and it has evolved over the course of time. The Christos is the wholeness, the allness, and it is the perfection, the spiritual perfection that exists behind everything. And we judge something not to be perfect because of our human judgments, because of the way we have been brought up to see the world. We look at something and call it, small or large or sharp or dull or whatever it happens to be, because that's our human mind judging that circumstance. The concept of spiritual perfection is that it is in its natural, original state of being. It has everything within it that is needed for its perfect expression. And that's what lies at the essence of who we are. There is a spiritual perfection that lives within each of us. And as we go through life, we cover that spiritual essence up. We cover it up with beliefs and ideas and things that we begin to take on about ourselves that simply are not true, but are facts. And as a result, when we get into a teaching such as this, we begin to uncover it and we begin to take away a lot of the things that we have thought were covering up our spiritual essence and reveal it. We reveal the light that is within us when we connect with that sense of the mystical presence of the Christ consciousness. So the Christ then is the perfect pattern. It's behind all creation. It is the body of life. It is the body of wholeness. And we are all connected by that one energy and by that one light. So today I want to close by sharing something from the great teacher Rumi. And Rumi, many of you know, actually started the Sufi movement. And his teachings are so ancient and old, and they're just so right on. And the reason I share this with you is because this thought existed many, many, many years prior to much of the thought that we think today. And it just kind of brings you back and helps us all realize that what we're saying right now existed so long ago. So this is what Rumi says, so this is actually about Rumi. A doorway to eternity flickered open, and in one pure, outrageous act of faith, Rumi dove through an instant of mystical annihilation. Fire met fire, ocean, ocean, and Rumi fell into pure being. Later he would say, what I once thought of as God, I met today as a human being. Therein lies the essence of our teaching. To see the Godness, the Christ essence, the light of perfection in one another. To look at someone and perceive what we know is the wholeness of who we are. And as we do that for one another, we feel it and we know it and we see it in ourselves. And that is where the healing begins. When we feel that sense of compassion, of understanding, when we have patience, when we open our hearts to love, when we cry perhaps, when we grieve, when we experience those emotions of the human heart, what we're doing is we are expressing and experiencing our sense of being human. But at the bottom of that, behind all that, is the presence of God, is the mystical essence of who and what we truly are at our core, that is infinite and eternal, which is what we are. And so now